The night the horses screamed, the swamp answered back. It wasn't a normal sound. Not a neigh. Not fear exactly. It was sharp, fractured, like the land itself had been torn open and was crying through them. Eli Carter froze on his porch, one boot half-laced, the other still muddy from the day. The lantern in his hand flickered as if it, too, wanted to run. People said nothing lived out here anymore. That was the lie. Just 3 weeks earlier, Eli had bought this land for less than the price of a used saddle. 87 acres of sinking swamp, tangled reeds, and mosquito-choked water that locals called dead ground. The kind of place you only bought if you were desperate, or broken enough not to care. Eli was both. He hadn't always been this way. Once, he'd owned good land. Dry land. Pasture that rolled like a promise under open sky. Once, he'd had a barn full of horses that trusted him, and a life that made sense. Then came the drought. Then the bank. Then the accident that took his brother and left Eli with a silence that never stopped ringing. So when the county clerk laughed and said, "You know that land floods every spring, right?" Eli only nodded. He wasn't looking for comfort. He was looking for quiet. The swamp was supposed to be empty. That's what made the tracks so impossible. On the second morning after moving in, Eli found them near the waterline, deep, clean hoofprints pressed into black mud. Not cattle. Not deer. Horses. Multiple. Fresh. He knelt down, fingers hovering over the imprint, heart thudding in a way it hadn't in years. Wild horses hadn't been reported in this county for decades. And yet, the prints led straight into the marsh. That night, the screaming began. Eli didn't grab a rifle. He didn't grab a phone. He grabbed a coat and the old halter he still kept, though he told himself he didn't know why. Some habits never die. Some bonds don't either. The swamp swallowed sound in strange ways. Every step felt wrong, water sucking at his boots, reeds whispering secrets he didn't want to hear. Then he saw them. Shadows first. Movement in the mist. 3 horses stood knee-deep in water under the moonlight. A chestnut mare, ribs faintly visible. A black stallion, scarred and coiled like a wire pulled too tight. And between them, too small, too thin. A foal. It stood trembling, legs shaking so badly Eli thought it might collapse. Its coat was dull, caked with mud, one eye half closed from swelling. The mare shifted protectively, ears flat, ready to fight the world. Eli's breath caught. This wasn't just survival. This was a stand. He took one step forward. The stallion lunged. Water exploded as hooves struck, a warning charge that stopped inches from Eli's chest. The horse's eyes were wild, burning with fear, not rage. The kind of fear that comes from being hunted too long. Eli raised his hands slowly. "Easy," he whispered, though his heart was hammering. "I'm not here to take you." The horses didn't believe him. Why would they? No one had ever come to this land to help. The foal stumbled then, knees buckling, body folding into the water with a weak, helpless sound. The mare cried out, nudging it desperately. That sound, the raw panic of it, hit Eli harder than any memory. He moved without thinking. The stallion charged again, closer this time. Eli stood his ground. He didn't shout. He didn't reach for the halter. He just knelt, slowly, deliberately, lowering himself into the mud like he was offering something far more dangerous than trust. "I lost someone once," he said quietly, voice cracking before he could stop it. "Couldn't save him. I won't watch it happen again." The swamp went still. The stallion stopped. That was the first miracle. The second came with headlights. A truck appeared on the far ridge, beams slicing through fog like knives. Then another. Engines. Doors slamming. Voices carrying across the water. Eli turned, dread sinking into his gut. He recognized the trucks. County patrol. Land management. Men who didn't see horses as lives, but as liabilities. The mare shifted again, panic rising. The stallion snorted, stamping, ready to bolt. The foal tried to stand, and failed. And just like that, the war found its beginning. Eli stood up slowly, placing himself between the horses and the lights. He didn't own them. He hadn't earned their trust. But this land was his. And he would not move. Someone shouted his name. Eli, you know what's out there? Those animals are protected and dangerous. Step away. Eli didn't turn around. Behind him, he felt it, a change. The stallion stepped closer. Not away. Closer. Close enough that Eli could feel its breath, hot and shaking against his back. A line was being drawn. Between what the world wanted to take and what this broken piece of land had been hiding all along. By sunrise, the swamp was no longer quiet. Word travels fast in small places, faster when fear rides it. By the time the fog lifted, 3 county trucks were parked along the ridge, their tires chewing up grass that hadn't been touched in years. Men stood with clipboards and radios, boots clean enough to prove they hadn't stepped into the water yet. They were watching, measuring, deciding. Eli stood in front of his fence line, arms crossed, eyes burning from a night without sleep. Behind him, deeper in the marsh, the horses were gone, hidden where only they knew how to disappear. But their presence lingered. In the churned mud. In the broken reeds. In the tension humming through the air like a wire pulled too tight. You can't just keep wild horses, one of the officials said, adjusting his cap. Especially not here. Eli didn't answer right away. He was watching a pair of vultures circle low, as if they were waiting for someone to make a mistake. They're not kept, Eli said finally. They were here before me. That was the first mistake, admitting it out loud. Within hours, the swamp had a name again. Occupied land. Within a day, the rumors started. Some said Eli had lured the horses in to raise their value. Others said he was hiding something illegal under the water. A few whispered about the stallion, how it had scars that looked like rope burns, how it must have escaped from somewhere people didn't want questions asked. By the 3rd day, the letters arrived. Unauthorized wildlife presence. Environmental violation. Potential public safety hazard. Eli read every word twice, jaw tightening. He'd lost land once already, to papers, stamps, and signatures from people who never set foot on soil. He wasn't losing this one without a fight. That afternoon, he returned to the marsh alone. The water reflected the sky like broken glass. Eli moved slowly, deliberately, announcing himself with each step the way he used to with skittish horses long ago. His heart pounded, not with fear, but with something sharper. Hope. The mare appeared first, ears high, body tense. She didn't charge. She didn't flee. She watched. That's good, Eli murmured. That means you're thinking. The stallion emerged next, muscles coiled, eyes locked on Eli's every breath. Up close, the scars were worse than Eli had thought, deep grooves across the chest and neck, old and new laid together. This horse had known ropes. Hands. Pain. Then the foal stepped out. Still weak. Still thin. But standing. Eli swallowed hard. He crouched and gently set a bucket of fresh water on a dry patch of earth, then backed away. No sudden moves. No demands. The foal sniffed the air, took one shaky step forward, then another. When it drank, Eli felt his chest loosen for the first time in days. That was when he heard the engine. A quad bike stopped short at the edge of the marsh. A woman swung off, helmet tucked under her arm. She looked younger than Eli expected, dusty boots, practical jacket, eyes that didn't flinch when they met his. "You're Eli Carter," she said. "I'm Mara Jensen. Wildlife surveyor." Eli tensed. "Here to tag them? Move them?" Mara shook her head slowly. "I'm here because someone filed an emergency relocation request." Eli laughed once, bitter. "Already? They say the horses are aggressive. Dangerous. A threat." Mara's gaze slid to the stallion, who was standing guard between Eli and the foal. "They usually say that when they want something gone fast." Eli studied her. "What do you see?" Mara didn't answer right away. She stepped closer to the water, careful, respectful. "I see a family that's been pushed too far. And a foal that won't survive another forced move." Her words landed heavy. "Can you stop them?" Eli asked quietly. Mara exhaled. "I can slow them down. But people with money don't like delays." That night, someone cut the fence. Eli woke to splintered wood and fresh tire tracks in the mud. The horses were gone, again, but this time, the silence felt wrong. Too empty. Too clean. He found the foal's tracks first, dragged, uneven. Panic hit him like a blow to the chest. He ran. The tracks led to the far end of the swamp, where dry land met a cleared strip of dirt. Temporary fencing. Floodlights. A transport trailer idling, engine low and patient. Men moved fast. Efficient. Like they'd done this before. Eli didn't think. He shouted. The stallion erupted from the reeds like a storm, screaming, a sound so raw it froze everyone in place. He charged the trailer, striking metal with such force it rang like a bell. The mare followed, eyes wild, teeth bared. Chaos exploded. Men yelled. Radios crackled. One stumbled back into the mud. The foal cried out from inside the trailer, a thin, desperate sound that cut through everything. Eli vaulted the fence. Someone grabbed him. He broke free. Another tried to block him. He didn't stop. Don't touch them. Eli roared. You don't know what you're doing. That was the moment the war became real. By the time authorities arrived in force, the swamp was lit like a stadium. Cameras rolled. Phones recorded. The stallion stood bleeding from the chest, still refusing to back down. Eli stood beside him, one hand raised, not touching, but close enough to matter. And for the first time, the stallion didn't flinch. By morning, the swamp was no longer just land. It was evidence. News vans lined the ridge, their antennas stabbing the sky like warning signs. Social media had already chosen sides. Headlines screamed about dangerous wild horses and reckless landowners. Others called Eli a hero, a man standing between greed and something sacred. None of them knew the truth yet. Not the real one. Eli sat on the tailgate of his truck, hands wrapped around a cup of coffee he hadn't tasted. His knuckles were scraped. His shirt still smelled like swamp water and fear. Across the clearing, the stallion stood in a temporary corral, untouched by ropes, untouched by sedation. No one dared go near him. Except one person. Mara. She moved slowly, palms open, her voice calm as she approached the fence. Easy, big guy, she murmured, more to herself than to the horse. The stallion didn't charge. He didn't retreat. He watched. That's not normal, one of the deputies muttered. Mara glanced back at Eli. He's protecting something. Eli's stomach tightened. He always is. The foal lay resting near the mare now, breathing steadier than the night before. A volunteer vet had checked him, dehydration, malnutrition, signs of stress, but alive. Against the odds. Against intention. Mara joined Eli at the truck. I pulled the historical records on this land, she said quietly. It used to be a government holding. Decades ago. Eli frowned. For what? Testing grounds, she replied. Before they shut it down. The words landed like a stone dropped into water. What kind of testing? Eli asked. Mara hesitated. Containment. Temporary holding. Sometimes animals. Sometimes, things they didn't want people to see. Eli stared toward the swamp. Toward the water that hid more than it revealed. They didn't come here by accident, Mara continued. These horses. They were kept somewhere before. That stallion's scars? Not wild. Man-made. A flash of memory hit Eli then, his brother, working horses for a transport outfit years ago. Whispering once, late at night, about shipments that weren't on any manifest. Animals moved quietly. Quickly. Forgotten. Eli swallowed hard. What are they hiding? He asked. Mara looked him dead in the eye. Not what? Who? They found the marker just before noon. Half submerged, rusted metal protruding from the water like a broken tooth. Eli noticed it first, because the stallion noticed it first. The horse went rigid, ears pinned, a low sound rumbling from his chest. Mara crouched, brushing away mud. Letters emerged. Property of Federal Livestock Program, relocated. Her breath caught. That program was shut down after a scandal, she said. Animals went missing. Records destroyed. Eli felt the ground tilt. So they're not just wild horses. No, Mara said softly. They are survivors. Everything made sense then. The fear, the resistance, the way the stallion had positioned himself between humans and the foal like he'd done it before. Like he knew what came next if he failed. That was when the suits arrived. 3 black SUVs rolled in, clean and quiet. Men stepped out who didn't introduce themselves, didn't wear badges where you could see them. One of them smiled like he already owned the place. "Mr. Carter," he said smoothly. "We're here to resolve this misunderstanding." Eli crossed his arms. "You mean take the horses?" The man chuckled. "Relocate them. For everyone's safety." "And erase them," Mara snapped. The smile faded. "You're standing on sensitive land," the man said. "Land that never should have been sold." Eli felt something harden in his chest. "Then you shouldn't have let it go for pennies." That was the wrong thing to say. By sunset, injunction papers were served. Eli was given 48 hours to vacate or comply. The horses were to be removed by force if necessary. That night, the stallion broke the fence. Not to run. To stand beside Eli's porch. The horse stopped just feet away, close enough that Eli could see the white of his eye, the twitch of muscle beneath scarred skin. Eli didn't move. He breathed. Slowly. "I won't let them take you," Eli whispered. "I promise." The stallion lowered his head. Just an inch. It was trust. The next morning, the foal took its first steady steps toward Eli. No stumble. No fear. The mare watched, tense but hopeful. Someone filmed it. Posted it. The video spread like fire. Comments flooded in. Donations. Lawyers offering help. Former workers from the old program speaking up at last. The war shifted. But the men in the black SUVs didn't retreat. They escalated. The rain began without warning. Not a gentle rain. Not the kind that cools the earth and softens edges. This rain came down hard and fast, drumming against metal roofs and turning dirt to liquid in minutes. The swamp responded the only way it knew how, by waking up. Eli stood at the edge of the marsh as water crept higher, swallowing reeds, erasing paths the horses used to escape. The land everyone had called useless was suddenly alive, dangerous, unpredictable. And the timing was too perfect to be coincidence. "They're opening the old floodgates," Mara shouted over the roar of rain. "Upstream reservoirs, someone triggered them." Eli's jaw tightened. "To force us out." "To force them out," Mara corrected, eyes locked on the rising water where the horses had vanished moments earlier. The mare screamed. It cut through the storm like a blade. Eli ran. The water was already knee-deep, cold and fast, tugging at his legs. He followed the sound, through reeds, through branches snapping under pressure, until he saw them. The horses were trapped. A natural basin, once shallow, now filled rapidly as water poured in from every side. The mare stood on the highest patch, foal pressed against her chest. The stallion fought the current, muscles straining, hooves slipping in mud that refused to hold. Eli didn't hesitate. He plunged in. Mara shouted after him, but the wind tore her words apart. Eli felt the current slam into his thighs, then his waist. Every step was a battle. He slipped once, went under, came up gasping, but kept moving. The stallion saw him. For a split second, fear flashed across the horse's face. Then something else. Recognition. Eli reached the basin, water surging around his chest. "We're getting you out," he shouted, though he wasn't sure how. The land he knew, the exits the horses used, they were gone. The stallion screamed again, a sound of rage and defiance, then did something Eli would never forget. He turned. Not away. Toward Eli. The horse fought the current, step by agonizing step, until he stood beside him. Shoulder to shoulder. Two beings facing the same force. Together. Mara appeared behind them with a rope, thrown from the ridge by volunteers who'd arrived after the video went viral. People Eli had never met were forming a line, anchoring themselves to trees, to each other. "Now," someone yelled. Eli looped the rope around a thick root and waved the stallion toward it. The horse hesitated, just a moment, then moved. The mare followed, foal stumbling but staying upright. The water surged higher. A roar echoed through the swamp as a section of old containment wall, something long buried, collapsed under pressure. Mud and debris exploded into the basin, knocking Eli off his feet. He went under again. Time slowed. Hands grabbed him. Pulled. He broke the surface coughing, rain mixing with tears he didn't remember starting. He saw the horses scrambling up the slope, volunteers hauling, shouting, refusing to let go. The foal slipped. The stallion turned instantly, blocking the water with his body, bracing himself as Eli and another man lifted the foal together. For a terrifying second, it looked like the stallion would be swept away. He wasn't. They all made it. When the water finally receded, the swamp was unrecognizable. The rusted markers were gone. The hidden structures exposed, concrete foundations, old fencing, proof of what Mara had said all along. Proof no one could deny now. Drones hovered. Cameras rolled. Officials who'd once threatened now avoided eye contact. And in the chaos, Eli realized something else. The injunction papers were gone. Washed away. That night, exhausted volunteers sat around fires. Someone handed Eli a dry jacket. Someone else pressed a phone into his hand. Live coverage, thousands watching, commenting, sharing. Mara sat beside him, mud-streaked, smiling through fatigue. They can't erase this anymore. Eli looked out at the horses, resting on higher ground. The stallion stood watch, but his posture was different now. Softer. The mare leaned into him. The foal slept. They saved each other, Eli said. Mara nodded. So did you. As dawn approached, a decision loomed. The land was no longer just Eli's problem, it was a symbol. A battlefield. And powerful people were still watching. The morning after the flood, the swamp looked different. Not cleaner. Not tamed. But honest. The waterline had receded just enough to expose what had been buried for decades: broken concrete pads, twisted steel posts, fragments of old containment pens half swallowed by mud. Proof that the land had once been used to hold lives, not just water. Proof that the horses had never been free by choice, only by escape. Eli stood quietly at the edge of it all, boots soaked, shoulders heavy. For the first time since he'd bought the land, he wasn't alone. Reporters waited at a distance. Volunteers moved carefully, documenting everything. And nearby, the horses grazed, still alert, but no longer running. The stallion watched Eli. Not as a threat. Not as a stranger. As a constant. Mara approached with a folder tucked under her arm, eyes tired but steady. The state's backing off, she said. Too much exposure. Too many witnesses. They're opening an investigation into the old program. Eli exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding his breath for weeks. And the horses? They are classified as protected survivors, Mara said, smiling softly. They're not going anywhere. The weight of those words hit him harder than the flood had. Later that day, a man in a clean jacket arrived, same smile as before, but smaller now. Careful. There's an offer on the table, he said, extending a card. The land. Full market value. Eli didn't even look at it. I didn't buy this place to sell it, he replied. The man hesitated. You could walk away. Start over. Again. Eli glanced toward the horses. The foal trotted awkwardly, stronger now, nudging the mare with playful impatience. The stallion stood nearby, scars catching the light, but his eyes were calm. I already started over, Eli said. The offer was withdrawn. Quietly. Weeks passed. The swamp became a refuge, not a secret one, but a protected one. Fences were rebuilt where needed, but never to trap. Only to guide. Veterinarians came and went. Students. Conservationists. People who listened. Eli stayed. He learned the rhythms of the land, the way water rose and fell, the paths the horses preferred, the signs of storms before clouds appeared. The stallion never allowed a rope, but he allowed proximity. Allowed Eli to stand close. Close enough to matter. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Eli sat on the fence and spoke aloud, though no one else was there. If you're still watching, he said, voice rough, I hope you see this. He imagined his brother somewhere beyond the reeds, beyond the noise, smiling that quiet smile he used to wear around horses. The stallion stepped forward. Slowly, deliberately. He lowered his head until his forehead brushed Eli's chest, just for a second. A gesture so small, so powerful, it stole the breath from Eli's lungs. Trust. The land that had been called useless was now priceless, not because of what could be taken from it, but because of what it protected. And if this story moved you, if you felt the tension, the fear, the hope, take a moment to like and share it. Stories like this survive the same way horses do, because people refuse to look away. Subscribe if you believe some bonds are worth fighting for. Because sometimes, the greatest wars aren't fought with weapons, but with compassion, courage, and a promise kept.